Sarah Chen had woken up at 5 in the morning, as she had always done for the past 28 years. Her routine was meticulous: a 6-kilometer run, a cold shower, black coffee without sugar. At 52, she maintained the upright posture and firm gaze that characterized someone who had dedicated her entire adult life to naval service. That Tuesday morning, she would wear civilian clothes for the first time in weeks. She had an important meeting at the Department of Defense in Washington, but first she needed to resolve an irritating domestic problem. The plumbing in her Alexandria home had collapsed overnight, flooding half the kitchen. Sarah had called the repair company at 6 o'clock, and they promised to send someone before 9. She hoped it would be quick. Her meeting was scheduled for 2 in the afternoon, and she still needed to review classified documents waiting in her private office. The doorbell rang at 8:40. Sarah opened the door and found a man of about 35, with a prominent belly and his company cap crooked on his head. He was chewing gum noisily and holding a rusty toolbox. His name tag read, "Derek Morrison, Senior Technician. Are you the one having trouble with the sink?" Derek asked without even looking at her, already pushing the door open and entering uninvited. "Actually, it's the main pipe that feeds the kitchen," Sarah replied calmly, closing the door behind him. "The leak started overnight and—" Okay, I know what I'm doing, ma'am," Derek interrupted, throwing his toolbox to the living room floor with a thud. "I've been doing this for 15 years. Where is it?" Sarah gestured cautiously toward the kitchen. Derek shuffled over, leaving mud marks on the floor she had carefully cleaned that morning. She took a deep breath, remembering that she needed that job done quickly. This is it," Derek said, crouching down to examine the pipe under the sink. "This is going to be a lot of work, probably all day. Maybe 2 days. 2 days? Sarah frowned. "The attendant assured me it would be quick." "Yeah, right? You women always think everything is simple," Derek laughed, turning to look at her for the first time. "Leave it to someone who knows what they're doing, darling. Go watch your soap operas and I'll take care of it." Sarah felt her jaw clench. In 3 decades of military service, she had faced storms in the Pacific, tense negotiations with foreign powers, and commanded thousands of people under extreme pressure. But she chose to maintain her composure. "I don't watch soap operas," she said calmly, "and I prefer to follow the work if you don't mind. I need to understand the problem." Sure. You want to understand." Derek made air quotes with his fingers, his tone heavy with condescension. "Look, this is a man's thing. It's technical, you know. It's not like baking a cake or those things you guys do." Sarah crossed her arms, her expression remaining neutral, but her eyes acquiring that steely glint her subordinates knew so well. "Please continue. I'm listening to your technical analysis." Derek didn't catch the tone. He spent the next 20 minutes disassembling pipes, making excessive noise, and occasionally making comments about how women don't understand anything about maintenance, and that's why they need husbands. Each comment was accompanied by a smug laugh. "Are you married, ma'am?" he asked at one point, without even looking back. "Because your husband should have checked that first. But you know, guys these days don't know how to be real men anymore." "I'm a widow," Sarah replied curtly. "My husband was an Air Force pilot. He died in the line of duty 12 years ago." Derek paused for a brief second, but quickly resumed his work. "Oh, I'm sorry about that. But look, that's precisely why you need someone who understands these things. A woman alone in a house, without technical knowledge, is a recipe for disaster." Sarah looked at the clock. 9:20. She needed this to be over soon. "How long do you estimate the repair will take?" she asked. "Oh, I don't know. About 4 or 5 hours. It depends on what I find here. But relax. I charge by the hour, so you'll be paying properly for quality service." He winked at her inappropriately. Sarah took another deep breath. The attendant mentioned a flat rate of $250 for this type of repair. "Yes, but that was before I saw the mess that's here. Look, ma'am, no offense intended, but it's clear that nobody has done any preventative maintenance on this house. This is going to cost at least $700, maybe $1,000 if I find more problems." "Interesting," Sarah said, her voice taking on that tone that made admirals from other nations reconsider their positions at the negotiating table. "Because I have the complete maintenance record of this house for the last 8 years. Full inspection done 3 months ago. Everything certified." Derek stood up, wiping his dirty hands on his pants. "Look, you might have some papers there, but I'm seeing it with my own eyes. And I'm the technician here, not you. So either you accept my estimate, or I'm leaving and you're stuck with a flooded kitchen." Sarah stared at him for a long moment. Derek held her gaze, an arrogant smile playing on his lips, clearly believing he had the upper hand. He had no idea he was standing before someone who had stared down heads of state without blinking. "Very well," Sarah finally said. "You have 15 minutes to present a proper diagnosis and a fair estimate, or I'll call your supervisor." Derek laughed loudly. "Supervisor? Ma'am, I am the supervisor. I'm a senior technician. The entire company has 6 employees. Who do you want to complain to? The owner? He's my cousin. We'll cover for each other." He crouched down again, clearly pleased with himself. "Look, I'll give you a free tip, since you're a widow and all. A woman shouldn't live alone in a house this big. It's too much to take care of. You should sell this place and move to a small apartment, something more suitable." Sarah checked the clock again. 9:35. Her patience was running out. "What if I told you," she began, her voice low but full of authority, "that I've spent the last 30 years managing operations far more complex than the plumbing in a house?" "Oh, really?" Derek laughed. "What did you do for a living? Secretary? Human resources? No offense, but those office jobs aren't the same as real manual labor." "No, I didn't work in an office," Sarah said. "Well, not exactly." Derek was about to make another comment when his phone rang. It was his cousin, the owner of the company. "Hey, Jeff. I'm here working at..." "Wait, what's the address again?" Derek asked Sarah. 342 Magnolia Street, she replied. Derek repeated the address on the phone. There was a pause. His face began to lose color. "What? No, it can't be that house. You're kidding. But she's here in normal clothes. She looks like a..." "Jeff, wait, let me..." Derek put down the phone, looking at Sarah with an expression of growing confusion. "My cousin is saying that this house is registered as... This can't be right. He says the owner is... an admiral?" Sarah said nothing, only kept her gaze fixed on him. "Ma'am," Derek swallowed hard, "are you in the military? One would expect you to have read the entire duty order before coming," Sarah said calmly. "But I'll make it easier for you. Vice Admiral Sarah Chen, retired 3 months ago from the United States Navy. I served for 28 years, the last 6 as a vice admiral, commanding the 3rd Fleet in the Pacific. Before that, I was a rear admiral responsible for global naval logistics, and before that, a captain commanding an aircraft carrier battle group." The phone fell from Derek's hand, hitting the wet floor. He stood completely still, his mouth open, his arrogance evaporating like mist in the sun. I didn't, ma'am, Admiral, I didn't know." "Obviously," Sarah said. "And do you know why you didn't know? Because you spent the whole morning making assumptions based on nothing but your own prejudice. You saw me, a woman in her 50s in casual clothes, and decided I was incompetent, ignorant, and needed to be treated condescendingly." Derek tried to speak, but no sound came out. His face was red, and sweat was beginning to appear on his forehead. "Throughout my career," Sarah continued, her voice never rising but carrying the weight of decades of command, "I managed budgets worth billions of dollars. I coordinated operations involving tens of thousands of people. I made decisions in situations where lives depended on my ability to analyze quickly and accurately. And you thought I wouldn't be able to understand the plumbing in a house. Admiral, I apologize. I didn't..." "You didn't think," Sarah cut him off, "and that's the problem. You came here with preconceived ideas about what a woman can or cannot understand, about what a woman should or shouldn't do. You interrupted me, ignored my knowledge of my own home, tried to deceive me with an inflated budget, and treated me as if I were incapable of rational thought." Derek was trembling now, staring at the floor. "I'm so sorry, Admiral. I didn't have the right." "No, you didn't," Sarah agreed. "But you know what's worse? You probably do this with all your female clients. You assume incompetence, overcharge, and take advantage of what you perceive as ignorance. That's not just disrespectful, it's dishonest." The phone on the floor started ringing again. Derek glanced at it, but didn't move to pick it up. "Answer," Sarah ordered, and it was impossible not to obey that commanding tone. Derek picked up the phone with trembling hands. "Hi, Jeff. Yes, she's here. No, I didn't know. I swear I didn't read the order properly. Jeff, I messed everything up. No, she has every right to be angry." Sarah could hear her cousin's altered voice on the other end of the line, clearly panicking. She waited for Derek to finish the call. "My cousin wants to speak with you." Derek said, extending the phone with a trembling hand. Sarah picked up the phone. Admiral Chen. Admiral, this is Jeff Morrison, owner of Morrison Repairs. The voice on the other end was clearly nervous. I cannot express how sorry I am for my employee's behavior. This is absolutely unacceptable. And, Mr. Morrison, Sarah interrupted him, I appreciate your apology, but I need you to understand something. I'm not angry because your employee disrespected me as an admiral. I'm angry because he disrespected me as a person. The problem isn't that he didn't know my rank. The problem is that he treated a client with contempt based solely on her gender. Yes, ma'am, I completely understand. Derek is fired immediately, and I'll personally come over to— No, Sarah said, surprising both Jeff and Derek. I don't want him to be fired. Derek looked up, shocked. What I want, Sarah continued, is for him to learn. I want him to understand that every person he meets deserves basic respect, regardless of appearance, gender, age, or any other characteristic. I want him to think before making assumptions, and I want him to treat every customer with the same consideration he would like to receive. There was a pause on the other end of the line. That's very generous of you. Admiral, it's not generosity, Sarah corrected. It's pragmatism. A man who gets fired learns he got caught. A man who keeps his job but truly understands his mistake has a chance to change. I've managed people long enough to know the difference. I don't know what to say, Admiral. Say that you will implement proper training for all your employees on respectful customer service. Say that you will review your budgeting practices to ensure honesty. And say that this incident will be used as an example of what not to do. Yes, ma'am, absolutely. All of that will be done. Sarah handed the phone back to Derek, who took it as if it were made of fragile crystal. Now, she said, you're going to do the following. You're going to inspect this plumbing properly. You're going to give me an honest estimate, and you're going to do the job correctly. I'll be watching, and you're going to explain each step of what you're doing and why. Consider this a learning opportunity. Yes, Admiral, Derek said, his voice barely above a whisper. For the next 2 hours, Derek worked under Sarah's watchful eye. His demeanor had completely changed. He explained each step, answered her questions with genuine respect, and Sarah noticed that he was, in fact, competent at his job when he wasn't busy trying to prove his superiority. The problem, as Sarah had suspected, wasn't as complex as Derek had initially claimed. A pipe had worn out naturally over time and needed replacing. 2 hours of work, $250, exactly as originally quoted. When Derek finished, he carefully cleaned the work area, something he clearly hadn't planned to do initially. Admiral, he said, finally looking her in the eye properly, I want you to know that I am genuinely ashamed of my behavior. There is no excuse for how I treated you. You were right about everything. I do this with many clients. I always thought I was being clever, but in reality, I was being a prejudiced idiot. Sarah studied him for a moment. There was sincerity in his eyes now, something that hadn't been there before. Derek, she said, her tone softening slightly, we all have biases. The question is, what we do when confronted with them. You can choose to defend your attitudes, or you can choose to grow. Which will it be? Grow, he said without hesitation. Definitely grow. And Admiral, if you'll allow me, I'd like to pay for the repairs. As an apology. No, Sarah said firmly. You will charge a fair price for your work. You don't owe me charity, you owe me respect. And respect means treating me like any other customer who pays for a job well done. Derek nodded, understanding. He prepared the bill, exactly $250, and Sarah paid. As he put away his tools, Derek hesitated. Admiral, may I ask a question? How did you endure it? I was awful to you all morning, but you never lost your composure. Sarah smiled for the first time. 3 decades in. The Navy teach you a lot of things, Derek. One is that uncontrolled anger never solves problems. It only amplifies them. Another is that sometimes people need guidance, not punishment. And the most important, that your rank, your knowledge, your competence don't need external validation. You know who you are, and that's enough. Derek shook his head, clearly processing those words. You're an amazing person. Thank you for not destroying me, even though I deserved it. Use this as motivation to be better, Sarah said. And the next time you enter someone's home, remember that you have no idea who that person is or what they've accomplished. Treat everyone with respect, not because they might be admirals in disguise, but because every human being deserves basic dignity. Yes, ma'am. I will. I promise. After Derek left, Sarah checked the repair. It was perfect. She looked at the clock and it was 11:30. She still had enough time to get to her meeting. As he was getting ready, his phone rang. It was the Secretary of Defense. Sarah, are we still going to see each other today? Of course, James. 2 hours, as planned. Great. We need to discuss your new position as a senior consultant. We have a delicate situation with the 7th Fleet that requires your expertise. Sarah hung up and smiled. Retired or not, she still had work to do. But first, she had learned that morning that teaching respect was just as important as commanding fleets. 3 months later, Sarah received a letter. It was from Derek Morrison. He wrote about how that day had changed his perspective, how he had apologized to former clients, how he was treating everyone with genuine respect. He thanked her for giving him a second chance when he didn't deserve it. Sarah kept the letter in a special drawer, where she kept significant things from her career. Among medals and awards, that simple letter from a repentant plumber seemed strangely appropriate. After all, leadership wasn't just about commanding ships and people. It was about lifting others up, even when they stumbled. And sometimes, the most important lessons didn't happen in war rooms or on aircraft carrier decks, but in ordinary kitchens, with ordinary people, on ordinary mornings that transformed into extraordinary moments of human growth.